This is a recorded webinar from Reconciliation Tasmania to help support teachers and educators in their starting out and revision of how to do a reconciliation action plan, why to do a reconciliation plan, and other elements of reconciliation in education. First of all, I'm Yabbo Thompson, Volunteer Coordinator of Reconciliation in Education with Reconciliation Tasmania. I'd like to acknowledge and pay respects to the Palawa people as traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land on which this is being recorded today, and acknowledge elders past and present. I'd like to also acknowledge any Aboriginal people who will be viewing this webinar, and I'd like to add that I value the history, culture, stories and strengths of our First Nations people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. We have acknowledged country. I'd like to now talk about the fact that Reconciliation Tasmania is in a regional program and partnership with Reconciliation Australia, and you can see the other states where this program is also. And this program is working with Reconciliation Australia in enabling teachers and early year educators to think about and go through the process of reconciliation action plans. Before we get to that, it's good to ask some questions of ourselves. What is cultural awareness? What is cultural safety? What is cultural responsiveness? Cultural awareness is about recognising, understanding the differences and similarities between cultures, and in this instance, particularly in relation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, perspectives and cultures. It involves developing sensitivity and understanding towards diverse ways of life, including values, beliefs, customs and traditions. This understanding is crucial for building respectful relationships and fostering reconciliation between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the wider community. This is a very important aspect, cultural safety. And for too long, Aboriginal people have not felt safe within many contexts of this society. It can be understood as an environment or relationship where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and young people feel safe to be themselves, where their Aboriginality is respected, where their sense of self and identity is nurtured and encouraged. Cultural safety begins with an appreciation of the historical context of colonialism, racism at individual and institutional levels, and the impact of this on Aboriginal people's lives and well-being, both in the past and present. It's a very important aspect for us to think about. And we heard, I have a quote here from a young Aboriginal Tasmanian who says, "I feel safe and loved when my family is all together." With all the experiences that Aboriginal people have, we need to start thinking about how we can make our schools and centres safe. What are the components that are needed to do this? And moving from here to cultural responsiveness, which is an ongoing personal journey. And we say cultural responsiveness because if we said cultural competence, that's somehow maybe more than any of us may be able to achieve. And this includes cultural responsiveness, a need to understand Australia's true history and our place in that history and positionality in the racial structures, internalised, interpersonal and systemic racism that really continues to operate in Australia today. A need as well to develop understanding of, value and respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, perspectives and cultures, including their unique connection to the lands, water and sky. And it is the base for better relationships between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with the wider community. And staff can improve their level of knowledge and understanding through building this cultural responsiveness and capacity. So they're very important aspects when we start thinking about how we're going to go on our journey of reconciliation. So it comes to those points, what is reconciliation? What is a reconciliation action plan? Well, let's look at reconciliation. And reconciliation means different things to different people. It's about strengthening relationships between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians. It requires the wider Australian community to recognise and respect the first peoples of this land, to acknowledge the past injustices and the ongoing inequities experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples since colonisation, and understanding their impact and working towards a more equal and respectful future by fostering respect, building trust, and valuing Indigenous cultures and experiences. And in a just and equitable and reconciled Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children will have the same life chances and choices as non-Aboriginal children, and the length and quality of a person's life will not be determined by their racial background. So if we think about action plans, this is a formal statement of commitment to reconciliation, developing relationships, respect, and opportunities in the classroom, around the school or centre, and within the community that surrounds that school or centre. So this is a chance to have that commitment, which can flow on to whether we're thinking about the early years framework or the curriculum concerns within schools. And why do we need RAPs? Well, there's all sorts of reasons that we can think about as to why we need these RAPs. We look at the Tasmanian Child and Youth Safe Standards and Universal Principle for Aboriginal cultural safety, we can see that this is very important, that organisations, meaning centres and schools and more, must provide an environment that ensures Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children's right to cultural safety is respected. There's also the Closing the Gap framework, which is a very important framework for us to think about in terms of where things are for Aboriginal people. And we know that in Tasmania, more needs to be done around health areas, around more Aboriginal young people getting through kindergarten and year 12. And a lot of the Closing the Gap has to also think about those questions of cultural safety and thinking about within that appropriateness. A lot of people are unaware of these Closing the Gap priority reforms, and it's something that we really need to think about carefully. And the other aspect, why do RAPs? There's a report to state government, The Pathway to Truth-Telling and Treaty, that Professors Kate Warner, Tim McCormack and Miss Falv Kanadi did in November 21. And it recommended that government develop a treaty and truth-telling framework to be enacted in legislation. It also recommended that the framework ought to include Aboriginal sovereignty has not been extinguished, but that it coexists with that of the Crown. It needs to include an acknowledgement of past injustices. It needs to include reparations for colonialisation, and it needs to include protection for Aboriginal rights. Now, the vision for reconciliation is based on 5 dimensions: historical acceptance, race relations, equality and equity, institutional integrity, and unity. We can use a framework, head, heart, hand model, to unpack the term reconciliation. With my head, what is it I know? What is it I need to know? With my heart, what is it? What further connections and knowledge am I going to gain? How can I do this? And with hand, what are the actions that I'm actually going to take? Well, how to get started on reconciliation action plans? Well, of course, these plans are done via Reconciliation Australia. And there's a site they have called Narragunnawali. And Narragunnawali means welcome, coming together. It's a word of the Canberra area where Reconciliation Australia's education program is cited. And through Narragunnawali, and I will show as we go on, you can establish a RAP group, which needs to be as broad as possible, not just teaching or education staff, but caring staff, office staff can be there, grounds people, older students, parents, and in particular, it's really good if there can be at least one Aboriginal person as part of that group to help guide its thinking. The first task of the group is to have the rest of the staff and everyone complete a reflection survey, which again is on the Narragunnawali site. And then to write a vision for reconciliation. What is that? This is an overarching vision for that school, that centre. What is it that you have as your vision for reconciliation? And then to add RAP actions. And noted here, there are 40 actions that can be selected from, and 14 are a minimum requirement. And your working group can also set actions aligned to goals and deliverables. So making those goals and deliverables meaningful is a task for that group. So again, it brings in the cultural safety and respect, tackling tokenism, and attention to evaluating reconciliation-related resources and activities, and a recognition that reconciliation in education often involves ongoing journeys, learning, unlearning, and relearning. And when doing the RAP, the Reconciliation Action Plan actions, they are in these areas of relationships, respect, and opportunities. So, for instance, in relationships, it's about what you're doing in the classroom, around the school and centre, and with the community. So just looking at an example, we'll take opportunities to embed the cross-curriculum priority that's schools or centre specific, to make sure around the school there are inclusive policies, and within the community, the local sites, events, excursions. So now we come to the Narragunnawali website. And when you sign in, you'll see Narragunnawali, which you can search for through whichever search engine you have. And you'll see up in the right-hand corner is a login or a sign up. So initially it's about signing up, and you'll get a password. When you click on there, it will ask you for a name, email, password. And then whenever you come next, you just log in. So you can join as individual members or as group members, and particularly doing a RAP. We'll be demonstrating just a bit later. So if you go in, you'll see that there are professional learning resources, and these are for anyone to use. It can be used, for instance, in staff meetings. It can be private study, however you feel you'd like to learn. And you can search by keyword, subject, year, and there are resources right through to tertiary. And then there are the curriculum resources for the classroom. And again, you can search by keyword, by subject, by year, and they are from early years through to tertiary. And at the top of the column, there's the sign up and the login. And it gives you, once you're logged in, you can save resources. You will have a spot, because you're a member, that you can go in and find your resources again. And then we come to the actions. So when you sign in, you go to Reconciliation Action Plan page, and then you will see actions that you can take. And here's sample action. And this is a sample from primary about relationships, respect, and opportunities. So Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the classroom, and that can enhance teaching and learning by engaging Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from within the school or early learning service, or school community. So now we can see here the Narragunnawali news. You can also see in the right-hand corner your RAP. So when you sign in to do a RAP, it will talk, you will have your RAP working group, you'll see the reflection survey, where you do your vision, and then your actions. And there's the link to get into Narragunnawali. And as it says down on the left-hand corner, this year will be another Reconciliation Action Plan Awards, which will take place on the 6th of November in Canberra. So there might be a representative from your community, school community or service who would be interested for that this year. And then the next one will be 2027. And of course, we're very fortunate to have the Aboriginal education and the Aboriginal Education Library. And it's really useful to engage with the email network, and you will hear through librarian Mary Blake on a semi-regular basis about new programs, new resources, particular days, and particular events. So it's very useful to be on this. And here we have more sites to do with Narragunnawali. You can download their flyer. They also have webinars, so you can book for a webinar, and they also have recorded webinars. And you can explore the Narragunnawali facts page, which can be very helpful, particularly when you are doing your RAP. And then you can contact Reconciliation Australia's Narragunnawali team, and they will help you. And particularly if you are, you have formed that group and you're engaged in a RAP, but you've got some queries. Of course, you can also connect with us here at Reconciliation Tasmania to give you that support. One of the programs that Reconciliation Tasmania offers is a youth speak out program. And this gives students mainly from years 5 to 12 a platform to express their thoughts on themes around reconciliation. There are themes every year for Reconciliation Week and also now NAIDOC Week, as some schools have elected to do and express their thoughts around the theme for NAIDOC Week as well. And those pieces of work can be in any form. They can be an artwork, a piece of writing, a speech, a poem, hip hop music or other music. It can be in the form of video. It can be both individual and collaborative. In whatever form the students feel they want to have their voice heard. And this is a great way for students to gain more understanding alongside staff as well. And this, the entry date is by the 26th of September this year. And the presentations at Parliament and Government House will be on the 6th of November, on the 13th, sorry, it was going to be another date in November, it will be the 13th of November. We had to wait till Parliament had settled in to really finalise that date. And then to get further support, And here it says the next webinar is 28th of August. In fact, it will be the 30th of October. And also ask us about workshops for your school or early year centre. We can do in-house workshops. We can do it as a workshop online. We do charge, particularly for coming to schools or early year centres, but please get in touch with us if you're interested, and we can help you towards your RAP or other aspects when we talk about reconciliation in education, which of course is something that we all need to really think about. So thank you for listening and watching, and please get in touch.